How you doing? And thanks for tuning in to Wicked Warnings, your number one source for construction and LED equipment and lighting for cars, vans, buses, bicycles, tricycles, and brand new 2022 Ford Raptors. Yes, that's right. This is a brand new Gen 3 2022 Ford Raptor you're looking at right there. And I'm going to give you a fair warning. This is the long, in-depth, complicated video. We have a couple shorter videos on this truck. If you want to see those, we're going to link them to you. But this video is the long one that's going to go over all the stuff. So get some popcorn, get in your favorite chair, make sure nobody's going to bother you, and stay tuned. Alrighty, we're going to start on the front of the truck, and I'm going to tell you what exactly you're looking at. From top to bottom, working our way down, up on the fenders, we have a pair of C2 by Diode Dynamics. That's going to be an amber backlight and a white steady light. That's what they call a ditch light or a fender pod. You can get a couple of different lights to go on that bracket by Diode Dynamics, but we went with the C2 light because we like the way it looks. It's nice and sleek. It's about half the size of an SS3, which we have out back, and you'll see shortly. But that's what we chose for up there. Now, there's going to be some custom stuff on this truck that is not available as a kit. This is one of those things you're going to have to kind of figure out on your own, and I'm going to let you guys know that right now, first and foremost. This is a complicated build. I'm going to give you as much info as I can, but we don't have everything in this all set up as a DIY, easy-to-do thing. So, as far as those pods, you'll notice the amber backlighting is flashing. I tied that into our auto flasher module that's also flashing the grill DOT lights and the outer fender DOT lights. It's not very bright on the C2, so I don't know that I would do that again. However, below that, in the SS5s on the bumper, on the outer ambers, we tied in the backlighting to the auto flasher as well, because that auto flasher is running on the parking circuit. It's running the parking lights on the grill and the outer fenders, which are also tied in to power the backlighting on the Diode Dynamics bar. So we were able to do it on the SS5s. I think it was worthy on the SS5s. It looks decent and it's bright enough. On the C2s, again, I don't know if I would do that again. Of course, as you can see, when we power up the C2s for their full flood warning or full flood illumination, any and all backlighting is drowned out. So you can have the C2s on or off, doesn't make a difference. And when you have the emergency off and the parking lights on, the C2 backlighting looks very nice. Illuminates soft and amber, just like all the other parking lights. And you can see here, we've also tied the backlighting of the front Diode Dynamics into there as well. Now, those four center Diode Dynamics SS5s, those are RGB white backlighting, meaning you can select all the colors on those. And I have a much more in-depth video about how those installed and how all the other Diode Dynamics lights installed. So I'm not going to get real in-depth on that because we filmed a special video all about how we adapted that Diode Dynamics bar and made it work, and that's where we're going to have all the information on that. As far as the C2s, that's an off-the-shelf product with an off-the-shelf bracket from Diode. Works great, easy install, no modification necessary. Alrighty, what are we looking at here anyways? Right in the grill there, recessed behind the honeycomb grill, mounted on the actual active shutters, is 3-inch M-Power in amber white. M-Power is available in any color. If you need blue, give me a call or an email. We'll get it for you. We stock red, white, and amber white. All of those can be run on both colors, as you see, or one color. If you preferred an amber white to flash only amber, but have a steady white flood, you can do that. This customer, we went with amber white flashing, and we didn't bother to do the flood on this one because we've got more than enough flooding going on already. So, those are just 4 sound-off signal, 3-inch M-Power lights synchronized in an X pattern, which is basically the pattern name is intercycle, and 2 of the lights are alternate color and alternate phase, and then it's just how you space them. You can obviously see that the upper right and lower left are the ones that are synchronized, and they alternate with the lower right and upper left. Very easy process to do. So, speaking of emergency lighting in the grill, that's what we did. There's some M-Powers right there. This is where we mounted them. They should line up nicely with some holes in the front grill and be visible. That's exactly where we got them. If you want to borrow that location, you go right ahead. See the grooves where they're lined up there. That's what we're doing. So, below that, our auto flasher module, currently running on the factory fog lights. The outer pair, your factory fog lights. Your inner pair is on aux 1 from the factory. I did a blue Raptor where we flashed the inner pair. We did that modification behind the fog light. That's fair enough and easy to do if you want to flash the inner pair. What I didn't like about it was I had to do the modification on the bumper behind the fog light, which meant that there's some wiring now between the bumper and the vehicle that's not factory, which means when the bumper comes off, there's some wiring non-factory that's going to have to be dealt with. So on this one, we did it a little different. First off, the customer requested to do the outer lights, not the inner, so I had to change my plan. And because the outer lights are your factory fog circuit, there is a connector behind the grill here, a big, large, gray connector, and that is where we sourced the 2 factory fog light wires. I did a cut install. Oh my God, I did. Yes, I cut 2 wires on the truck. Now, I cut the 2 wires on the truck side of the connector to allow any and all bumper replacement removal without any extra wiring. By modifying the harness on the vehicle side, which there's a lot of length and it's a very easy harness to modify. It's literally right behind the grill there, and there's plenty of wire to work with. It's not even difficult. By modifying it on the vehicle side, if this needed to go to a body shop for a grill and bumper and headlight removal for any reason, for repairs or body work or anything, no problem. The modification that we did for these lights is on the vehicle side of the bumper body harness, and it has no effect on anything. So the other thing is, if we were ever to replace these with a similar draw light, not replace them with some monster-sized large light, but with a similar draw, like if you were going to go to a different rigid lens or you were going to go to maybe an S2 by Baja. By replacing the fog light, you could still get the flashing effect because the harness mod was done on the vehicle side. So it doesn't really matter what fog light is out there. The harness modification will do that. Now above that, you'll see our auto flasher module also running the parking lights, our 3 grill lights and our 2 outer fender lights. That's a different module. Of course, we need 1 auto flasher module for the fogs and a separate auto flasher module for the parking lights. We don't have this all set up as a kit yet, but work with me, bear with me. I'm going to get you guys as much as I can. We did need to repower, of course, the outers off the auto flasher kit. Now on this particular truck, I'm running all of the warning on 1 auxiliary switch. That's not a problem. It's been able to power it. I'm going to go over all of the auxiliary switches at the end and show you what I'm running on all of them. Now around the back of the truck, we went with our dual head windshield light. We vertically mounted it in the back window because I like to keep that sliding rear window unaffected by anything. I didn't want to have any issues. Didn't want to hang a big long stick across there and mess up the headliner either. Customer was a real fan of the vertical like that. And that's our dual head windshield light, which if you cut the cigarette light end off of it, you can synchronize it. As you see there, we have the 2 in sync, and they're just on a triple flash with a little hang. Nice pattern. I didn't want to get real crazy and aggressive on that pattern in case he had to back up and he needs to look behind him when the lights are on. I didn't want the rear window being a complete disco show, making it impossible to see. So a nice, steady, methodical pattern isn't too offensive if you do need to look out that back window. Now below that, we got our auto flasher module, another separate module on the rear parking lights. It's alternating the rear parking ring on the tail light, which is a fairly easy kit to put in. It's a pin swap kit on the rear tail light, just like the F-150. Not a big complicated thing, but we had to add an extra wire on the output of each side of the module. Now, we mounted the module on the passenger side because we ran all of our wiring right up the passenger side of the frame up to the passenger engine bay where the auxiliary switches are. So what we did is on that module on the passenger side has input output 1 and input output 2, which normally go to each light. We just added an extra wire on the output 1 and an extra wire on the output 2. Of course, the output 1, which would be running the passenger side, I believe, is where the extra output run over to the driver's fender. And that's how we got the alternation. If you can see here, you'll notice the passenger tail light is in sync with the driver's fender light because they're both parking lights and they're both running on the output 2 of that flasher module. I simply clipped the factory power wire away for the factory fender light in the back, and I repowered it with the extra lead coming off of the output 2 on the flasher running the tail lights. I did the same thing on the other side. You can't see it at the moment, but the driver's side tail light is actually in sync with the passenger side fender light. What that allowed me was an alternation of the tail lights from behind, as you can see from straight behind, as well as a corner alternation between the fenders and the tail light, as you can see right here on the driver's side. Just adding a little bit more movement, a little bit more flash. To not clash with that alternation, I did a very fast single flash ping pong, they call it, on the lower reverse auto flasher kit. I just did that to match the fog in the front. I had did that pattern on the previous Raptor, and the owner of this Raptor liked it on the fog lights. So I said, hey, do you want to do the reverse that way? And he said, sure. And that's what it looks like. And that way the reverse doesn't have an alternation that's out of sync or not set up right with the taillights. Now, if you want to do something different, by all means. Patterns are a work of art. You can literally set them any way you like. You can synchronize what you like. This is all your choice. Now, below that, just to add a little bit more amber into this build from the back, because we have that nice pop of amber in the rear window, I added some 3-inch M-Power amber only. Now, you could add an amber white there if you'd like, just like you saw in that grill. You could also add any other color if you want to email us if you need a special color. We stock amber white and red white in stock almost always, but if you need something different, just drop an email. And that you could actually have a floodlight underneath there if you wanted to. We didn't choose any of that. We went with straight amber, and that is the intercycle pattern, the same pattern in the grill, but in amber only. You can see how it does that same quick bounce back and forth. And we just like that because it adds a nice bold punch of amber below the white factory reverse and looks nice in conjunction with that amber up in the rear window. Now, below that is our SS3 Diode Dynamics flood white pods under the bumper. They don't strobe. They're just for white lighting. They're just to see behind the truck. And now that we killed those SS3s off, you can kind of see the rear warning package a little clearer. Now, if you wanted to mess around with the 3 DOTs up there by the third brake light, you could probably tie into those. We didn't bother. There's also a couple of little white cargo lights in that third brake light we didn't bother with as well, but maybe on the next Raptor we'll tie into those. The Raptors, I did notice, they do not have the amber signal here like the F-150. They have a red brake light here and in the middle. Smart hitch, of course, in the middle, very similar to the F-150 where it gives you the weight of your hitch. Well, that's what they say it does. But the Raptor has a red brake light above it instead of the amber signal. Now, the F-150 has a white reverse here and an amber here, and you'll see in a couple other videos we did where we did a white and amber alternation, but the Raptor's red, so that's why you're not seeing anything on the top there on this Raptor. Now, at the time of filming, I don't have all these kits as a DIY setup, so bear with me a little bit as far as what's available and what's not. I'm going to work my best to put this together, and you're going to need to have some pretty good, extensive 12-volt knowledge to slam all this into a Raptor. So if you're a complete DIY novice, and this is absolutely the first time you've ever experienced anything automotive 12-volt related, this probably isn't the best package to jump into. But if you've done some car stereos, some car alarms, or some other accessory lighting, and if you're owner of a new Raptor, you could just take it somewhere and have somebody do it too. Either way, it'll work. So what we're going to talk about a little bit is how it's wired. So the auto flasher kit for the taillights, that's going to come with everything we need to run that auto flasher and run the wiring forward to the auxiliary switches. Same thing with the reverse lights. The custom modification on the outer fenders, that I'm leaving up to you guys because we're going to borrow the taillight kit from the F-150. I'm being honest. We're going to borrow the reverse light kit from the F-150. I'm being honest. For the Raptor, if you want to include those fenders, it's not that hard. You're just going to, as I said, add an extra wire on each output and drag it over to the fenders and repower them. That's how we're going to do the back-end kits on this Raptor. It's F-150 parts with a slight modification if you want. Now, you don't need to do the fenders. If you don't want to include the fenders, by all means, just flash the factory taillight rings. And if you buy the kit as it's off the shelf to flash only the rings, it will not automatically do the fenders. That's not how this is going to work. Now, as far as how I wired those M-Powers underneath the tail lights themselves, that's just some 22-5, extended both M-Powers, brought them right over to the passenger tail light where we mount our auto flashers because on this truck, the auxiliary switches are on the passenger fender, remember. So we're going to run our auto flasher module on the passenger tail light, tucked behind the tail light, and run our power wires up the frame. We extended those 22-5 auto M-Powers over to the auto flashers, and we borrowed power ground from the auto flasher turn-on. Very easy. Works just fine, especially if you're okay with the auto flashers being turned on with the same switch as the M-Powers. No problem there. You just need a little bit of 22-5, which you'll have plenty of because we're going to include a bunch for the front grille. So that's how that back end is set up. 2 auto flasher kits borrowed from the F-150. Small modification for the rear fenders if you want that. It's optional. It's not included. You've got to do it on your own. Please don't call me and ask me why it's not part of the kit, because we're borrowing the parts for the F-150 for the Raptor. That way we can get you these kits right away. And the kit is going to install behind the taillight with a pin swap. If you need a plug-and-play connector, email us. They are becoming available. We can get you a plug-and-play connector for the kit as well. But it's going to install behind the taillight as a pin swap, wire swap kit the way it is. Above it, you got 2 windshield lights We're going to chop the ends of them off. We're going to synchronize them together. What I did is I ran that wire right up the passenger side sill plate to the pass-through wire. I connected it to the pass-through wire, and underneath the hood, I connected the pass-through wire to the auxiliary switch corresponding to my warning. That allowed me to trigger those interior lights from the exterior, under the hood, upfitter switches. Ford gives you two sets of wires under the hood, a red set and a white set, wrapped in red and white tape, respectively, behind the battery. You'll find the upfitter wiring after you remove the battery and look over in the fender. One wrapped in red, one wrapped in white. The red ones are your hots from the switches. They actually have power. The white ones are the ones that go back through the cabin and into the passenger footwell. So, of course, I connected some of the warning under the hood to one of the switches. I also connected one of those wires on the white loom to that switch, and then underneath the dashboard I now have switched power that ran the rear lighting in the rear window off of that switched power. Very easy. So all you need there is some 18-2. We'll throw 25 feet of 18-2 in there. More than enough to get you from the rear windshield lighting, where you join them together on the passenger side behind the rear seat, over by the jack, tuck all the wiring behind the panel, run it up to the front and tie it in there. There's a ground right there by the upfitters, by the passenger footwell. There's a nice ground behind the plastic, very easy to get to. So that'll give you the rear setup there. Everything on the back should be easy enough and explained. Except the SS3 pods. I forgot all about them. I almost forgot about them. The SS3 pods mounted under the bumper. They're on their own harness. They're on a 16-2. I'm going to go ahead and give you 30 feet of 16-2. That's going to run from the upfitter switch down the frame to the SS3 pods. The SS3 pods come from the factory with about 6 inches of pigtail wire on them. That's how that's going to run. You're just going to need to make your connections to your 16-2. I daisy chained it. I went from the driver's light right over the passenger light, from the passenger light straight back to the switches. Fairly easy, not too complex there. Now in the front we went a little bit easier. So I'm going to link you to the harnesses that we used as well for the diode dynamics. We're not including all of these diode lights in this package. The SS3s, I am including. The front end, I think on the front end with these diodes, I'm going to make this optional because it's such a bold purchase. Now, the rear pod lights, they should be on every Raptor. So they're included in this kit with the emergency lighting. But this big monster light bar on the front bumper and these two ditch lights up here, they're going to be a separate purchase, just so you know. So they're detailed in a separate video. We're going to give you a separate purchase on those. If you like them, go ahead and purchase them, and then we're going to get you the harnesses that work with all that. It's going to put it all together. It's very easy to do, but that's not part of this kit right now because it's so bold, and I wanted to just make this kit a little simpler. So for now, just try to ignore that light bar right there. And in the front here, we're going to give you 4 of the amber white SS3s. We're going to give you an auto flasher kit to flash the factory 5 marker lights there, the parking lights on the front grille. We're also going to give you an auto flasher kit to flash the factory fog lights. I've got some real good detail I've already shared, I believe, about the fog light install and the grille install, and we're going to do our best to try to keep improving this kit and keep making it better and better. The next version of this that you'll see in the video, I'm actually going to take the emergency light wiring and we're going to run it through the factory connector that controls these 3 lights right here. No need for another connector. We're just going to borrow space in that factory one the same way we did in the video. So that's the next revision. Every time I do a Raptor, I'm going to try and do them better and better and better and cleaner. So the next thing we're doing is these 4 emergency lights. They're going to factory flow power through the factory connector on the grill. That way, if you ever have to remove the grill, just pop open the factory connector and away you go. So we're going to go ahead and put in 50 feet of 22-5 to give you all of the wiring that you need for those 4 emergency lights. Whether you run them through the factory connector or not is your choice. You don't need to do that. You can do this install without even removing the grill. If you're tricky and you can get a long drill bit through, it is possible to put those emergency lights in from the front, run the wiring right up through the back, bypass the factory connector, and go right to your auxiliary switches. You can do that if you'd like. It's totally your call. So that's why we're giving you a lot of the 22.5 to kind of give whatever option you want. The auto flasher kit for the marker lights and the fog lights is going to come with everything you need to kind of do what you see here based off that video. Please bear with me on the front kit. We're working with it. We're developing it. It's a work in progress. So if you have any questions at all, ask them before you buy. Ask them now. Email in and clarify so you know what you're getting, so we know everything's going to work out for you. On this truck, I like, it's my favorite part of the build is the labels, honestly. On this truck, we labeled it up as follows. The aux 1 is from the factory, your fog lights, your extra set of fog lights. Aux 2 is all of our flashing. Aux 3 is BAK for our back light underneath the bumper there. Aux 4 is our pod lights on our front fenders. Aux 5 is our big 4 white lights in the center, and aux 6 is our 2 outer yellow lights in the center, the big yellow lights. And that's why we kind of ran out of switches real quick there. So that's why we did that waterproof switch on the backlighting in the front I showed you earlier, or I showed you in the diode video. If you haven't seen that full diode video, check that out, all about that front light bar. But that's how we ran our switches here. This is just a sticker. It's a Dymo. It's just a Dymo labeler. And we were able to kind of slice it right in line with the rubber there very carefully so we didn't screw up the rubber or leave any scars on the switches. And it ended up pretty nice. I kind of like it. At least gives him an idea until he memorizes what all the stuff is now on all of his switches. So thanks for watching. I hope this video kind of covers everything. If I missed something, feel free to drop a comment and send an email and let me know, and I will get back with you as soon as I can with an answer. Thanks for watching Wicked Warnings, your #1 source for construction and emergency safety strobe lighting equipment for cars, vans, buses, bicycles, tricycles, unicycles, jet skis, boats, RVs, trailers, and 2022 Ford Raptors. Yeah, Gen 3 Raptors. Very cool. With the big radio, too. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.